7. It's time for our new geography class, and as we're done with Africa, it's time for us to move on to our next topic and our next continent, which is Europe. Europe is the world's second smallest continent. Located in the northern hemisphere, Europe has great diversity of landforms, cultures, and many other things. Today, we're going to work with our book and we're going to learn about landforms and resources of Europe. And you need to open them on page 273. As for me, I'm also going to offer you a look at the book. Okay, so here comes our page. It's page 258 and unit 4, Europe. Okay, so, but you don't need to read anything from this page, because in your books you will open page 273. On my screen, and also in your book, you can also keep your finger at a certain page, or you can put a bookmark there. This will be page 263 for us today, and it shows you the physical map of Europe. Okay, right now you can only see the northern part of this map on your screen, but in your book on page 263 you have the whole map. Okay, now for the moment you can follow me on page 273, okay, because I'm going to read from that page, or you can stay here on page 263 to have a better look at the map while I'm explaining things. Okay, so now first of all, you remember that Africa was called the continent of, or Africa was called the plateau continent, okay, or the continent of plateaus, while Europe is usually called the continent of peninsulas, or peninsula of peninsulas. Now, on a map you may see that Europe is actually a large peninsula stretching to the west of Asia. Europe itself has many smaller peninsulas, so it's sometimes called a peninsula of peninsulas. Because of these peninsulas, most locations in Europe are no more than 300 miles from the ocean or sea. As you can imagine, the European way of life involves using these bodies of water for both business and pleasure. Now, today, as we're talking about landforms and resources, we are going to talk about peninsulas first, and we will divide them, as your book divides them, into two main groups: northern peninsulas and southern peninsulas. In northern Europe, okay, so now you can keep your eyes on my map here. In northern Europe is the Scandinavian peninsula. Here you can see it. Okay, so Scandinavian peninsula. It is occupied by nations of Norway and Sweden, and you see in different geographical books this peninsula is described a bit differently. Also, partly it has, some books say that Finland is also on this peninsula, and a very small part of Russia. Okay, but your book says Norway and Sweden, so let it be Norway and Sweden. It's bounded by the Norwegian Sea. Okay, you can see Norwegian Sea here. Okay, the North Sea here, and also the Baltic Sea here. Okay, more than almost any other place in Europe, this peninsula shows the results of the movement of glaciers during the Ice Age. The glaciers scoured away the rich topsoil and left only thin rocky soil that is very hard to farm. Maybe that is why Vikings, who occupied these lands first, had problems with farming, and that's why they were forced by nature to go south and conquer other cities, places, towns, and people. Okay, in Norway, glaciers also carved out so-called fjords. You can see many of these fjords here at the western side of this peninsula. Uh, fjord, Fjords are uh, steep U-shaped valleys that connect to the sea and that filled with seawater after the glaciers melted. Fjords provide excellent harbors for fishing boats. The fjords are often separated by narrow peninsulas. If you look closely at this map, you will see that here you see very, very, very small peninsulas and a lot of them. Okay, so these peninsulas form those fjords. Another peninsula for us in the north is Jutland. Jutland here. Sorry. Okay, move a bit. Oh, not so fast, not so far. Okay, my screen is playing tricks with me. Okay, so this here is Jutland Peninsula. Okay, so it is directly across the North Sea from Scandinavia, and Jutland forms the largest part of Denmark and a very small part of Germany. This peninsula is an extension of a broad plain that reaches across northern Europe. Its gently rolling hills and swampy low-lying areas are very different from the rocky land of Scandinavian peninsula. And, to tell you the truth, this area is pretty fertile compared to Scandinavian peninsula. The next peninsula for us, and the next group of peninsulas are called southern peninsulas, and they are of course located in the southern parts of European continent. Okay, so here. Okay, so here we are. First of them is the Iberian Peninsula here. This peninsula is home to Spain and Portugal, and the Pyrenees Mountains here block off this peninsula from the rest of Europe, and of course it's a natural border between Spain and France. The Italian peninsula here, okay, you see this very, very long boot. Okay, so this Italian peninsula is home, of course, to Italy. It's shaped like a boot and extends into the Mediterranean Sea and has 4,700 miles of coastline. You see, it has coasts everywhere. And also we have here the Balkan Peninsula, which is bordered by Adriatic Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and Aegean Sea. And again, some books also add Black Sea, because this Balkan Peninsula is actually here. So you see, Black Sea also is one of the borders of this peninsula. Also important part of Europe are its islands. Okay, the larger islands are Great Britain. Here you see Great Britain, Ireland. Okay, Ireland here. Further north we have Iceland here, and unfortunately not included in your map but still considered to be Europe, Greenland, a huge island, which is actually almost the same size as Australia. All of them are located in the North Atlantic. Although far from mainland Europe, Iceland and Greenland were settled by Scandinavians, by the Vikings, and have maintained cultural ties with the mainland. Over the centuries, many different groups have occupied the smaller Mediterranean islands here. Just a second, I need to move this. Smaller Mediterranean islands. Okay, so you can see them here. They are Corsica, okay, and Sardinia, and Sicily, okay, and also the island of Crete here, okay. So, of course, as they're all in the sea, these islands depend very much upon trade. Now, it's time for us, if you don't have any questions about mountains, or if you don't have any questions about islands and peninsulas, to talk about mountains. The mountains and uplands of Europe may be viewed as walls between different places and countries, because they separate groups of people from each other. They make it difficult for people, goods and ideas to move easily from one place to another, and these landforms also affect climate of this region. For example, the chilly north winds rarely blow over the Alps into Italy. Okay, so chilly winds here cannot penetrate the Alps here, the Alp mountains, and they don't reach Italy, or hardly ever. Okay, and as a result, Italy has mild climate. So, different mountain chains break Europe into smaller parts. The most famous mountain chain in Europe is, of course, the Alps here. Okay, on this map you can see that Alps arc. Okay, they arc across France, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, and in Austria, and even go a bit further to very north of the Balkan Peninsula. They cut Italy off from the rest of Europe. Similarly, the Pyrenees here restrict movement from France to Spain and Portugal. Both ranges provide opportunities for a lot of skiing, hiking, and other outdoor activities, so they attract a lot of tourists. Running like a spine down Italy, the Apennine Mountains here, okay, you see the Apennines. The Apennine Mountains divide the Italian peninsula between east and west. The Balkan Mountains also here, the Balkan Mountains also block off the Balkan Peninsula from the rest of Europe. Historically, they also have isolated the peninsula's various ethnic groups from each other. Also, apart from mountains, we have uplands, okay, and uplands are slightly different from mountains. Uplands are hills or very low mountains that may also contain high plateaus. Some uplands of Europe are eroded remains of ancient mountain ranges. Okay, so like for example, before here there were mountains, but as a result of the erosion for thousands of years, these mountains lost their height and now they look pretty low, pretty short. So examples of uplands include the Kjoln Mountains of Scandinavia. Okay, if we go up here, sorry, my map is not very fast moving. Like this. Okay, so here we have these uplands. You see, next to the mountains we have uplands. Okay, also we have Scottish Highlands here. Okay, and and also some higher mount or higher areas in Britain, so in Britain and in France here. Okay, so uh, other uplands border mountainous areas such as the central uplands of Germany, which are the base of the Alps. About one-sixth of France's lands are located in the upland called Massif Central. Okay, not Central Massif, but Massif Central. So if you try to say it in a French way. Okay, now if we're done with mountains, why not to go to rivers? Okay, so you can see that unlike many other continents in the world, Europe is pretty rich in water. Traversing Europe is a network of rivers that bring people and goods together. These rivers are used to transport goods between coastal harbors and the inland region, aiding economic growth. Historically, the rivers also have aided the movement of ideas. Okay, so philosophical ideas were, if they couldn't penetrate the mountains, they were moved. They were moving by water. So, two major castle-lined rivers, the Danube and the Rhine, have served as watery highways for centuries. So, both of them, the Danube River here, okay, and you see, and this Danube River is very, very long. Look, it goes here, 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 and ooh, wow, it's very long. And also Rhine here, okay. So these two major rivers served as watery highways for many years. The Rhine flows 820 miles from the interior of Europe north to the Northern Sea. The Danube cuts through the heart of Europe from west to east, touching 9 countries over its 1,771-mile length. The Danube River links Europeans to the Black Sea. Many other European rivers flow from the interior to the sea and are large enough for ships to traverse. Through history, these rivers helped connect Europeans to the rest of the world, encouraging both trade and travel. Europeans have explored and migrated to many other world regions, as you remember from your history course, if you had a history course. Did you? Okay. Now, about resources. Fertile plains. So, first of all, one of the most fertile agricultural regions in the world is the Northern European plain, which is located here, and as I mentioned before, it makes this Jutland Peninsula fertile as well. You see, this Northern European plain goes here as a stripe, and here, and until the very borders of the Pyrenees. Okay, so it's stretching a huge curve across parts of France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, and Poland. Relatively flat, this plain is very desirable agricultural land that has produced vast quantities of food over the centuries. However, the plain's flatness has also allowed armies and groups of invaders to use it as an open route into Europe. Smaller fertile plains used for farming also exist in Sweden, Hungary, and Lombardy in northern Italy. So here, this area in Italy is very fertile. Okay, a lot of grapes, fruit, vegetable, everything might be grown there. Okay, now, what about other resources? Because Europe is not an only agricultural continent. So, Europe has abundant supplies of two natural resources, coal and iron ore. Needed for an industrialized economy, the map so both of them, you see, for Europe, coal and iron were always very important, and industrial revolution happened there. In like, if you studied it in your history course, or maybe you will study it later. Okay, you will heard about industrial revolution. Okay, coal and iron ore were the basic. I mean, like, if there was not enough iron, people couldn't build up the factories. Okay, so. And if there was not enough coal, people couldn't run those factories, because when you melt iron, you need a lot of you need a very strong and stable fire, and this fire must be fed with coal. The map on page 276, and I guess now we can go to page 276 together. Okay. This map, this here beautiful map, okay, this map shows a band of coal deposits stretching from the United Kingdom across to Belgium and the Netherlands, and from there to France, Germany, and Poland. Near many of these coal deposits are iron ore deposits. Having both of these resources makes it possible to produce steel. The Ruhr Valley in Germany, the Alsace-Lorraine region of France, and parts of the United Kingdom are heavily industrialized because these minerals are found there and good transportation exists there. But as a result, these regions have suffered from industrial pollution, and we will talk more about, you will read more about pollution as your homework. Energy. So what about energy? It's just another resource there. Oil and natural gas were found beneath the North Sea floor in 1959. So here in the North Sea we have a lot of oil. Energy companies began to tap gas fields between the United Kingdom and the Netherlands. In 1971, new technologies made it possible to construct offshore oil rigs in the North Sea despite its depth and stormy waters. Norway, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and Denmark now pump oil from rigs as far as 400 miles out in the ocean. The North Sea oil fields are major sources of petroleum for the world. And as I mentioned before, agriculture is a very important source of European income. About 33% of Europe's land is suitable for agriculture, which is very, very good. The world's average is 11%, so Europe is especially well off. The land produces a variety of crops like grains, grapes, olives, and even cork. Timber is cut from vast forests of the Scandinavian peninsula and in the Alps. By the way, several years ago, you see that the book says that timber is cut there in Scandinavia, here is Sweden and Norway, especially Sweden. But interesting thing, and it adds to your knowledge about human-environment interaction in Europe. If you are a farmer and you have land, big land, and on your land you have a forest, and you want to cut your forest for timber, if the government learns about it, you will get a very big fine. If you want to cut some trees in your forest, you go to the government, and government gives you permission, and then with that permission you cut certain number of trees, and instead of them you have to plant the exact the same number of trees that you cut. You cut some, you plant more, you plant some others. Okay, so it means the number of trees in Sweden is something sacred, something that always must be there, and this is very good. I really believe it's very good for nature. Okay, now, and how these resources shape humans' life. As is true of every region, the resources available in Europe help shape the lives of its people. Resources directly affect the foods people eat, the jobs they hold, the houses in which they live, and even their culture. For example, traditional European folk tales often take place where? In deep, dark forests that were major part of the European landscape centuries ago. You remember even the story about the Little Red Riding Hood. The girl goes into the dark forest to visit her poor grandmother who lives somewhere there, and there she meets a wolf. Haha. Okay, now the distribution of resources also creates regional differences within Europe. For instance, because Ireland lacks energy sources, the Irish cut peat from large beds and burn it as fuel. Peat is partially decayed plant matter found in bogs, in swamps, in marshes. In contrast, coal is plentiful in other parts of Europe and has been mined for centuries. For example, generations of Polish miners have worked the mines that modern day Poles work. So, in Poland, some mines are there or have been there for centuries, and people from father to son were holding this job, for generations after generations. Okay, I don't mean that they have no other jobs to do and they have no chance to get something better than being just a miner, but still it is there. Okay, so there are mines and there are people who work there, and there are families whose members were working in those mines for generations after generations and centuries after centuries. Just as landforms and resources influence the lives of people, so does the climate. And in our next lesson, you will learn that the climates of Europe are mild near the Atlantic Ocean and grow harsher inland. You will also learn about the climate of the Mediterranean and the Arctic regions, but this is not today. As for today, we are done with this class, and I can only offer you a small piece of homework. Here we are. First of all, you may revise this lesson by looking back at the pages that we just read now, and you can also read, actually it's not that you can or you may, no, you should read about human-environment interaction on pages 282-85. And to make sure that you understood the lesson, you need to do the assessment task. First of all, on page 277, and second, it is not written on the screen, but when you are done with human-environment interaction, on page 285, you will also have the assessment section. Please do it as well. 285. As for now, ladies and gentlemen, we are done. Thank you very much. Bye.